Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the upcoming edition of the North Coast Journal. My name is Dave Frank, and I'm joined by North Coast Journal's news editor, Thad Greenson, and arts and features editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Welcome, guys.
Dave, thanks for having us.
So, Thad, let's dive right in and can you tell us what's on the cover of this week's North Coast Journal?
Yeah, this week we have a really, really well done, in my opinion, story by our now former staff writer, Ashley Harrell. So take a moment and say adios to Ashley. Hopefully she will rejoin us soon as a freelancer in some capacity. But she got a wonderful job opportunity at San Francisco Chronicle that she couldn't pass up. So,
right on.
But we're very, very grateful for her brief time with us. But the story flowed out of kind of one of these random conversations you have sometimes as a reporter, where you cover one thing and you get a phone call from somebody who feels like they've seen a similar incident that has gone unreported and saying, why didn't you report on this? And so really stemmed from a call Ashley got about an incident that had taken place on Howard Street, which is just south of Eureka city limits. And so it's one of these kind of random streets that is in an unincorporated area of Humboldt County, but is right next to the city of Eureka, but it's outside of Eureka jurisdiction. And the incident, as it was related to her, was was this fight or assault that had broken out between a group of young people, of 16-year-olds, and an adult male. And one of these, the juveniles, a young boy, a 16-year-old boy, was stabbed in the neck and had to be transported out of the area to Oakland for emergency treatment. And immediately, kind of, there was racial issues at play. The assailant was white and the kid is black. And Ashley started looking into the story, and it really, she really could have written a story about kind of for lack of a better term, a he said breakdown of a really specific incident. But as she kept reporting it, it just kind of kept getting these layers of context that were just really powerful. And everything kind of, as I was saying from the outset, of Howard Street being kind of this forgotten stretch that is kind of between jurisdictions and really kind of rife with neighborhood turmoil. She found that there had been 40 911 calls so far this year from this one street, which is really like a block and a half, sandwiched between Ocean View Cemetery and an RV park. And then she found this family. We didn't identify the juvenile in the story because he's a minor and the victim of a crime. But his great aunt is raising him, Roxy A. Chain, and she's just kind of this remarkable family matriarch who I think the story said had raised 15 kids, some of her own, some grandkids, and then some nieces and nephews and great nephews now, and kind of moved to this house on Howard Street that her family had, a friend of her son's had bought and fixed up for her to rent. And it was really, they were moving out of I think a 2-bedroom apartment that she shared with her husband and the kid in the story and his younger brother. And they were moving into this big, spacious 3-bedroom house. And so it was supposed to be kind of this really big moment for this family to have a step up and have a little bit more space. And what they found is that this neighborhood is just kind of, like I said, rife with problems. And a lot of it circles around this one neighbor, allegedly, this man named David Couch Jr., who's has a couple felony convictions in his past, and then has been his house has been the source of, I think it's 17, it might be even more than that, of these 911 calls from the neighborhood. And so some of those calls were generated at his house with him calling police on neighbors, and some of them were generated with the neighbors calling the police on him. And also, all of this is taking place at this time of kind of this new, racial reckoning in the United States about police activity and then just institutionalized racism over generations. And so as the Ashley kind of started reporting the story, like within a day or two of the incident, which happened on July 4th, and then just kind of followed the family through their quest to kind of try to get justice for this kid. And so the police Humboldt County Sheriff's Office came out and investigated the case. And really, initially, there was just some things that seemed kind of off about the way the case was handled. The kid said that he was questioned as the suspect, essentially. And that the first deputy on scene, kind of asked who he jumped and said that she didn't believe his story. And then it just follows from there as the case is kind of pending with the DA's office, and the kid is hospitalized down in Oakland, and follows kind of these anguished family conversations about whether they would see, official action taken, whether they'd see their neighbor kind of brought to justice, or at least charged, and, the case brought before a jury. It was a really poignant scene that she recreates of the kid in his hospital bed, kind of saying, "Nobody's going to do anything about this. I just kind of want to move on." And his aunt saying, or his great aunt saying, like, "What are you saying? Like, absolutely, this is they're going to follow through, and we're going to make sure they follow through." And ultimately, the DA's office decided there wasn't enough evidence to press charges, or to file charges, and so kind of declined to prosecute the case. The Humboldt County Sheriff's Office says that they're gonna continue investigating and keep it open, but it seems like very much like the case has been dropped. And meanwhile, David Couch Jr. has been the source of 3 other police calls for service over the last couple months, 2 of which have resulted in his arrest, one of which for threatening a white woman. And all of this has just left the family feeling, very despondent that in this time of, like I said, this reckoning with racial injustices, and especially the criminal justice system, they feel like if ever there was a moment, an incident like this would see justice, would at least see a courtroom and a jury of peers and all that. It didn't, and they haven't really gotten answers that they feel are satisfactory as to why that's been.
So actually, that was my follow-up question here is, what are the sheriff's department, what are the sheriff's department saying about why they're not able to proceed, with this case?
Well, they kind of represent that they felt like they brought forward a chargeable case to the district attorney's office. They, sometimes an investigating police agency will bring prosecutors a case and say, we're not really making a charging recommendation here. We're just giving you kind of the facts as we found them and let you make up your mind. In this case, the sheriff's office said, we recommend that you charge assault with a deadly weapon, cruelty unto a child, and assault with brass knuckles. And the DA's office reviewed the case, and basically there was the kid and another witness at the scene who kind of gave one version of events. The sheriff's office found another independent witness who said that that's not how it went and gave kind of a contradicting version of events. And then David Couch Jr. Refused to answer any questions of police when they interviewed him at the scene. And so the district attorney's office just said, we don't feel like this is a case provable beyond a reasonable doubt, and so we're not going to file charges. Which they make those kinds of decisions a little, often. I'll say, I've often seen in similar cases, though, where there's a, dispute or contradictions between 2 witnesses in an incident where it's clear violence took place. I mean, nobody's really disputing that David Couch, punched this kid in the neck and left him with a wound that, required emergency treatment. Prosecutors will take the stance that they're not, it's not necessarily their jobs to determine who's being truthful and who's not. That's up to a jury. And so they will charge a case and bring it to a jury and let a jury decide what actually happened. And they obviously didn't do that in this case. We don't have, access to the full record that they were looking at. So it's hard to say exactly what they based that decision on.
Gotcha. Well, this is definitely heart-wrenching. And I did look at it a little bit, and there's a lot of detail in there that's definitely worth checking out. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and then one last thing I'll say before we transition here is I think that one thing that really is gripping about the story is just the sentiment and the feeling from the family. And I think Ashley does a really good job of portraying that. And no matter what you think about the prosecutor's decision or kind of how this particular case was handled, I think you can't dismiss their feeling, and that in the climate that we're living in today, just this feeling, this family, that justice is so elusive, and if they look different or presented differently, that their story would be handled differently. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely worth hopefully that it gets revisited at some point, based on what's in the article. So thank you again. How about you, Jennifer? What's going on the Arts and Featured beat this week?
It's been a minute since I had a happy story about restaurants, and here we are. And I will just say, like I said to everybody before we started filming, if I glitch up, I apologize. I, like a lot of people in this county right now, am starting school with my family, and that means that other people are Zoom learning right now. But anyway, Jenny Misaki, who is the owner of Misaki's Kyoto Japanese restaurant, right downstairs from the Journal offices. Many a time I have gone in to feed my feelings there in the middle of a workday. That place has been there for 13 years. She and her husband, Eric Misaki, started it started Misaki's Kyoto Japanese restaurant after buying it from the original owner. And, it had been going strong. It had had a tough run with the blackouts. As you can imagine, if you have a whole refrigerator full of fresh raw fish, super expensive inventory to lose. So they had a tough time with the PG&E blackouts, and then COVID came along. Jenny Misaki tells me that even before the blackouts, higher end restaurants like hers were suffering. And she in particular can attest to the drop in her sales of around 30% after the legalization of marijuana. So once, the cannabis industry got heavy into regulation and taxation and everything, some of that free-flowing cash that was keeping restaurants open started to not be so free-flowing. So there were a number of things making it harder and harder to run a place with such high overhead. And that's not only the rent, but that inventory, that sushi inventory. Pound for pound, it's an expensive business, and the material doesn't keep. And she found that out quickly when she started, during shelter in place, trying to do takeout. People don't think about sushi necessarily as a takeout thing in the same way that they might other kinds of businesses. And so she was pulling down maybe $100 a day, and it was not worth it to be able to pay for inventory, pay an employee to keep the lights on, etc. So they had to go dark. And sometime around April, she sat down and realized, we can't do this. This is nuts. And she's been running the business without her husband for a few years now. But she has another business, Central Sandwich, over in McKinleyville that has been going gangbusters because people want to grab and go. And so she said, you know what, we're going to adapt. Kyoto's done, but I'm not done. And so she and what was left of the crew she could keep, a handful of employees, converted the place into a sandwich shop for now, although it could morph into something else. She's staying really flexible, and it is now Chuchi's Old Town Eats.
Cool.
And it's a really great moment in Eureka restaurant life, because this sort of group of restaurant employees, owners, managers, etc., all got together and helped her brainstorm the place. Mike Vitello, whom you may have gotten drinks from at the Shanty, and who used to be the chefs at Hurricane Kate's, he helped her put together the menu. And there is a sandwich named after him. That's how you know you're cool. Star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's nice. It's adorable. Do you have a sandwich named after you?
Right.
Mike's is the Godfada, which I am excited to tell you about, David, because it is all kinds of Italian meats, oil and vinegar. It's going to give you all those good New Jersey feelings.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah. So much Jersey, just on a roll. And
comfort food.
A lot of pressed sandwiches. Yes, there's a lot of hot sandwiches. She is doing tater tots the proper way, which is deep frying them. I'm sure you love tater tots at home. I'm sure you love them from an oven. But until you eat deep fried tater tots, you don't know about their full potential. And she tosses them in different seasonings. It's really wonderful. And in fact, I just got a message today from Michelle in our our office. She sent me a message, a photo of her tater tots today. She was like, I didn't know this was going to be in the paper, but look at my lunch. So
Nice.
anyway, it's kind of a great moment of a restaurant that people have been really invested in adapting to our pandemic and adapting to a new way to do business that can help her survive.
Yeah, it's a feel-good story. I used to love Kyoto, and when I heard they were closing, I was devastated. But this is like a phoenix. They're making making lemonade out of the lemons. So this is really cool. Thanks for showcasing that. Hopefully they're successful with this transition. I'm gonna check it out. I've been checking out all the places you've been recommending. So at least it's resulting in at least one person going out for sure. Well,
they're pretty busy.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear it. I mean, I think we needed that in town. So this was great. Thank you guys both. I definitely am going to pick up this week's edition. You should too, or find them online. This will just about do it. We're going to wrap up. Pick one up. Stay informed. And Thad, Jennifer, thanks so much. We'll see you guys again next week.
Stay safe,
David.